Picture this. You're 5 years old. Wait, no. Did 5-year-olds do gym class? Okay, you're 6 years old. And you're out there in the field with your teachers and classmates. Everyone's having a good time, some friendly competition here and there, right? No, it's not. This is war. This was the fight of humanity. And whoever was on the other side, even if they made friendship charms with you, is now just on the other side. Whenever the teachers called us over for what they called a friendly game of tug of war, we knew it was not friendly and not a game. That line was the only thing saving my 6-year-old honor and pride. It wasn't a simple game. It was a strategic battle that required the utmost considerations of tactics and prudence. That was a responsibility my 6-year-old self knew to take, that I would fight here, stand with my brothers and sisters, and fight with all our power until... Oh, lunchtime. Hi guys! So welcome to Miro's class. It's gonna be the first, episode, classroom, you name it. Today we're gonna be going over a concept that you typically learn in middle school, but actually is really important and something that you reuse again and again through middle school, high school, and eventually in college. Well, if you decide to pursue math in college. So I have my Miro board set up here with our little friend Jelly. Just ignore her. She's going to be on the side. She's going to be watching. She's going to be guiding us through the different topics here. So yeah, just sit tight. It sounds really intimidating when you first hear of it, but it really isn't that bad. Because the thing is, there's a lot of small tricks that people use to help them get used to the concept of negative and positive numbers. I haven't really heard of people using this particular idea, but what I like to do is think of two people having a tug of war. So, alright, imagine this. You have two teams. Now that I think about it, I should have made them two different colors. Now, imagine you have two opposing teams. I don't know how you guys played tug of war, but back in my days, we usually held like two sides of a rope. And there was a bunch of people on one side. So it wasn't just one person. So there was a bunch of people on the left side. There was a bunch of people on the right side. Now, depending on which side you usually had more people, that kind of determined who the winner was. Usually, of course, logically, the side with more people tend to have more winners. But I guess what I'm trying to illustrate here is you can think of that with the number line, with negative and positive numbers as well. So using that analogy, you can almost sort of think of adding and doing operations with positive and negative numbers as a little game of tug of war, where the positive team would be a bunch of people, on the right side of the rope, and the negative team would be a bunch of people on the left side of the rope. Let me demonstrate. So over here, I'm going to try to illustrate this. I obviously going to make them like similar size because it would be unfair if one of them was like huge. We got these 5 members, and they're fighting against the 3 members on the negative team. Who do you think's gonna win? Usually the positive team, right? Because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 members here, and then here you have 1, 2, 3. So naturally it seems that 5 people are gonna win over 3 people, assuming that they have the same size and strength. Now, another thing worth noting is you can also sort of translate this into numbers. So remember we said this is the right team, or as I've been calling it the whole time, the positive team, and this side over here is the negative team. Think of it as positive 5 plus negative 3. Now, remember, which side won again? The positive team, right? So I'm going to put that positive sign here. The next question you ask yourself is, how many more people do they win by? How many more people do they have? On the picture, we can clearly tell that the positive team has 2 more people than the negative team. So we just put that number 2 after the sign. 5 plus negative 3 is equal to positive 2. Another way that you can write this, which we feel a lot more comfortable with because we're more familiar with that way, is to simply say 5 minus 3. That's also equal to 2. The only difference with the first one and the second one is that we have 2 signs for the first one, which makes it immediately seem a lot more intimidating. But it's really not that bad. The only difference here is that one of them has 2 signs, one of them is only 1 sign. But at the end of the day, they both translate to the exact same mathematical expression. So let's apply this concept in terms of some practice. Let's do some practice with it. Now that we know that adding and subtracting positive, negative numbers is kind of like a tug of war, you can use that same concept in here. Okay, Today we're only going to be doing adding and subtracting positive negative numbers. Next time we'll probably do the other operations as well. Let's try some practice questions together. First one we're going to do is, what if we had the numbers 2 plus 5? 2 plus 5, what is that going to give us? 7. We know that because it just seems to make sense. 2 and 5 together make 7. But you can also think of this as 2 people were originally on the positive team. 5 more people decided to join. How many people, who's going to win, and how many more people are they going to win by? So let me rephrase that. Think of this originally as you had 2 people on the positive team. Then you added 5 more people. No one's on the negative team, right? But just based off of that information, who's going to win? The positive team. Well, because you don't have anyone on the negative team. It's completely empty. So the positive team wins. Now the next question, how many more people do they win by? 7. So we can say positive team wins. Let's say there are negative 20 or 20 people on the negative team and 50 people on the positive team. First question you ask yourself, who's going to win? All right, I'll give you guys a second to answer that. So we know that positive team's going to win here. The next question we ask ourselves is, how many more people do they have? The answer for this one is 30. The positive people have 30 more people than the negative. So you say 30. Now, format your answer. You're going to get positive 30. That's how you do it. Now this one over here, I'm going to make it a little bit more challenging. And this time I want you to try figuring it out first. I will give you 5 seconds to pause the video, and then when you're ready, you can just resume it again. We have negative 50 plus 40 minus 20 plus 10 minus 30. Okay. Let's try figuring this out. You can pause the video and then resume it in 5 seconds. What I recommend doing for questions like this is breaking it down. And to break it down, I would recommend pairing them together. So I deal with these two first, I deal with these two next, and then I group them like that. Everyone has their different ways of working through it. I'll show you the different ways. Let's do the pairing way. So we have negative 50 and 40. That's going to give you, well, who's going to win? Negative by how many? 10. Negative 10. The next one, negative 20 and 10. Negative 20 and 10, who's going to win? Negative by how many? Okay, also 10. And then finally we have negative 30. All right, so it seems like an overwhelming win for the negative team. So now we're going to figure out how to combine all these together. Negative 10 and negative 10, combine them together. The positive people are just, the positive team has just been extinguished. They're gone. So it's just negative team wins by 20 more people. And then we have this negative 30. Combine these two together, negative 20 and negative 30. Who's going to win? Negative by 50 people. So negative 50 is your answer. Another way you can do it, let me just copy this question here and I'm going to rephrase it on the bottom. So, how do I go about solving this question? Well, I know that another way I can do it is just group it all by negative numbers and then group the positive numbers. Notice in both cases, you're grouping one of the types of numbers together. Either you're grouping in pairs or you're grouping by a specific category. Grouping helps a lot with these kinds of long expressions because it's really hard to keep track of things like just all together in your head. So I'm going to group all the negatives and group all the positives together. So the negative numbers I notice are negative 50, negative 20, and negative 30. The positive numbers I notice are 40 and 10. So if I combine them together, I'm going to have negative 50. Let me just mark this in red. Negative 50 minus 20 minus 30. Then I'm going to have the positives, which are plus 40 plus 10. Now, a good way to think about it is like in this one particular round, negative takes control. We're kind of counting team members here. So how many team members do you see on the negative side? Well, we have negative 50, 20, 30. Just add them all together. You're going to get 100, right? Negative 100. Now on the positive team, you're going to have 40 and 10. Combine them together, you're going to get 50. That's a positive 50. Now you can combine the total cumulative negative team and the cumulative positive team. So you have negative 100 people and 50 positive people. So you have 100 people on the negative team, 50 people on the positive team. Who's going to win? Negative. By how many? 50. All right, and when you combine them together, the negative team wins by 50 more people. You get negative 50. That's your answer. So that's basically your overview of negative and positive numbers. Hopefully that makes a little bit more sense, but that's kind of the overview for it. Next time we're going to talk more about how to deal with negative and positive numbers when you multiply, and when you're dealing with many different signs. Like, for example, there was this one question where there was a... Okay, so remember this question over here where you had 5 plus negative 3 and 5 minus 3, and how I said they're the exact same thing? And there's a whole list of rules that deal with the positive, negative signs combining together. And I have another cool trick for that I actually learned from a student. So gotta give props to that. But hopefully this makes a lot more sense. This is my little fun, I guess, analogy of positive, negative numbers, and I still use it to this day to help me remember how to differentiate between the two and to combine them. No shame. All right, so that should be good for today. I'll see you guys in the next class. Of course, as usual, attendance not mandatory. Bye!